Okay, this is our new Sweetheart Rose Maker program, and it comes so that you can make a small rose, a medium rose, and a large rose. One of the first questions that people ask us is what kind of fabrics can we use? Certainly your Dupioni silks work well, your crepes, chiffon, satins, and regular old 100% cotton fabric makes very nice roses. You can also do linens. So anything that's kind of an elegant fabric usually makes up into a very elegant looking rose. The rose maker itself has two parts, and it comes unfolded like this, so you have a top and a base. And what you want to do, the instructions are very good in that they tell you exactly what size strip to cut for the small, medium, or large. Once you get your strip cut, what you want to do is sandwich the fabric in between the base and the top. And the base is underneath with its printing towards the bottom, so this area here, and the top, it has its printing towards you. If you want to make a rose that is going to go on a stem, you want to make sure that your fabric is right side up. If you're going to make a rose that's going to have a finished bottom so that you can put it into a corsage, you're going to want your fabric wrong side up. The important thing is that the base and the top templates match. There's a little butterfly here, and at this point you're going to insert your safety pin, or your straight pin. It's going to go all the way through to the back, matching up with the hole in the back and the front. You have one of these at the beginning where it says start, and you also have one of these points at the end. Again, this one says stop. You're going to put your pin through the butterfly and out the other end. Very important to have it this direction on this end, because if you don't, your pin gets stuck inside the template. So you want to make sure this follows the butterfly. Alright, at the point where it says start, we're going to be folding. This is all pre-folded, so you're just going to follow the folding of the template. You fold it up once, it says start, and this is your seam allowance right here. So at the seam allowance, you're going to have a nice long needle and thread, and I actually use quilting thread. I'm going to be pulling up, I'm making gathering stitches. I'm going to be pulling up on those stitches, and I don't want it, number one, to not be long enough, and I don't want it to break. So in the seam allowance, you're going to start with your knot at the bottom, following the tip here, and you're going to be working running stitches through the seam allowance. There's no exacting, these don't have to be too small, these don't have to be even, they don't have to be perfect. Just really nice. We like things where we don't have to be perfect. After you come up to the top of the point here, it's time to fold the template again. You're going to fold it back once and forward once. It automatically does it. And one of the things we found helpful is at this fold point to just put a little paper clip right here. It begins to help you hold. You want to make sure that both seam allowances are out and lined up. You don't want to have any seam allowance caught underneath. Nor do you want to sew into your template. So remember to keep your stitches away from the edge of the template. Just work those running stitches right in the seam allowance. And if you'll notice, I every once in a while will, at this corner, will kind of pull it down just to make sure it's snug, one seam allowance to the other. I'm at the point again, it's time to fold one more time. So we go back and then forward. Pull your seam allowance out from the underneath of the template, and again, put in your paper clip. That's really going to help hold it. In fact, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and pre-fold all the way around. That way, you're ready to sew and you don't have to keep worrying about those seam allowances. This is one of the tricks that we discovered as we started working with this program. Alright, I'm going to come back to where I stopped my stitches and pick those up again, working in the seam allowance. You can see where putting those paper clips in helps, so I don't have to continually stop and manipulate this fabric. Sometimes it feels like you need 16 fingers for this. Really actually working my way around this hexagon. And if you've ever made a rosette, you know that the seam allowance twists and twists and twists. So what is happening is by using this template, we are automatically twisting our tube. Okay, we have one last fold. That paper clip back on. Always make sure your seam allowances are together and you're picking up both the top and the bottom seam allowance and not going through the template. As you come up to this last point, you're going to see the word stop, and that's what you want to do right at this section here. Says stop, and you want to stop your stitching. When that's done, you don't need to unthread your needle, just set it down, take the paper clips off, open out your work, remove the top template, and amazingly enough, the other template is inside. You want to get that template out. We're making a rose that's going to go onto a stem. So we have our right side out. We're going to make this straight. And we're just going to reach in and pull out the inner template. And there you go. Now what you have here is your tube. The last thing that you want to do is stitch this end closed. So we're just going to continue doing our running stitch right through to the point in the seam allowance. When that's done, you want to gently pull up on your stitches, and what you're going to be doing is gathering. And as you're gathering, you're creating the petals for the rose. Now, this is where you started. You want to smooth that front tip out just a little bit so that it's not really gathered there. And you want to turn the gathering seam so it's all one direction like this. Again, straighten out this edge. And then we have this wonderful high-tech tool, a bobby pin. The bobby pin is inserted in the tip of the rosette, and you'll begin turning. What you want to do excuse me, is to turn so that your turns are lining right up with your seam allowance. Now at this point you can take a look and see if you like the density or the fluffiness of the rose. If you want it to be tighter, the best thing to do is to stretch out your gathers. So we're going to start rolling, and as we look at the gathers, we're going to make sure they're a little bit further apart. And you can move those as you go.